I'm in Warwickshire at the Long Martson Rail Innovation Centre at their temporary platform here, and rolling in right now at this platform is the Class 799, a hydrogen-powered train, and we're going to go for a ride in it today and find out how this could be the future of rail travel. You'll probably recognise this as a Class 319, that's an old Thameslink train. But out here, Porterbrook have converted them into the Class 799 Hydroflex train, a train that runs on hydrogen. Porterbrook are based at the Long Martson Rail Innovation Centre in Warwickshire, and we went for a literal ride around the site in a golf buggy, and I noticed that there were 7 old Class 319 units parked up, some from previous trials and experiments, and a couple, obviously, Porterbrook had converted into their hydrogen train. This is Tim, he's just driving around in a buggy. There's really no need for this shot, but I just thought it would be fun just to do. So we'll find out how the hydrogen works later. Right now, I'm getting on board for a test ride. The train is going to run up the Cotswold line from around Honeybourne up to Kidderminster and come back. And whilst on board, I chat to Ben, the Chief Operating Officer of Porterbrook.
We first developed the concept of Hydroflex and a hydrogen train back in 2018. And actually this is our second train. The first train, Hydroflex 1 as we call it back then, was effectively a proof of concept. We then developed the second train and then got this fit to go up to COP26 in October 2021, and since then we've now been operating it out on the network and proving it, shaking it down and learning more about what we need to do to improve the train.
So the fourth car of the 319 unit contains fuel cells. The original mechanical and electronic systems on the train remain exactly the same as the old Class 319 unit. It's merely the way the train is powered that has changed. And hydrogen from the tanks, which we'll see in a moment, produce an output of between 300 and 500 volts DC. But as the requirement is for 675 volts, then there are DC to DC converter modules on board to step up the power accordingly.
We've taken this train right through to the point of having it approved to operate on the network. What we'd really like to do is to be able to take this train that final stage further, an operator on board, and to see this operate in a trial condition with real customers, gauging their response to a hydrogen train. It's exactly like a normal train. It's about an alternative traction type, an alternative fuel. It's safe and getting it into real passenger service. So we think that will be a real benefit.
The train also has a lithium-ion battery on board located beneath the vehicle, and the output from the fuel cells is used to keep the battery topped up to provide the total power for the train. The old Class 319, now Class 799 of course, also keeps its 25 kilovolts overhead capability.
So at the moment we've got a dashboard here that tells us the power settings on the fuel cells, their actual outputs, and then we're looking at how much power is available from the traction system, and we're also looking at the behaviours of the battery. So we're monitoring here the battery temperatures so that we don't get too hot, and the state of charge for the traction battery, as well as the fuel cells.
Before we set off on our trip, Steve took us on a tour of how it works.
What we're seeing here on the right hand side is the high pressure hydrogen storage area, and what you'll see here is 36 hydrogen tanks, 3 banks of 12, hydrogen pressure at 350 bar. Basically all of this supplies the fuel cells in the low pressure side of the unit, which we'll go to shortly. You can see all the pipe work in here, and there's an incredible amount of safety systems in here to manage and monitor the hydrogen.
This is fed into onboard fuel cells, where a chemical process converts the hydrogen and oxygen from the air to generate electricity.
And what you're looking at here is one fuel cell system. In addition to the 400 kilowatt power we have from the fuel cell modules, we also have 400 kilowatts of lithium-ion battery on the underside of the vehicle, battery power. The fuel cells get very hot, so we have a radiator heating management system. So in this duct here, we've got 4 big fans that dissipate the heat from the fuel cell module. This duct system here, we have 1 fan that is dissipating the heat from the wider electrical system, auxiliary systems and so on and so forth.
And the electrical output produced goes through the train's existing traction control system, as well as charging the batteries on board.
And then these 2 units here basically are voltage distribution units. We've got a high voltage distribution unit here and a low voltage distribution unit here, 24 volt systems.
Obviously, I also wanted to know how the train actually drove. Time to chat to the driver.
It drives exactly the same as a 319. It's meant to drive the same as a 319. When they did the design spec for this, they wanted it to drive roughly on hydrogen the same as maybe a pair of Class 150s. In my view, it exceeds that, so it's actually better than they thought it would be. As you can see, we're rattling along quite the thing, no problems. Loads of power, and brakes really good. The weird thing is, it feels like an electric train to drive rather than a DMU, and I like electric trains, so it's a perfect train for me. We can go up to line speed here, so basically I can't exceed that. On the way back, we can get up to 90 miles an hour with this, no bother. They said in hydrogen they wanted it to do 75, but it actually gets to 90, which is really, really good. So I drive it out the sort of old-fashioned way because we're testing this. So, you know, I'm driving it quite hard. You know, I'm really putting loads of power down and working the brake and trying to take as much out the battery so that these chaps are all back there with their monitors looking for any niggles. So it's actually my job to try and find problems for them. Unfortunately, I'm not succeeding today. It's all going pretty well so far.
So we've had some real moments of innovation with this train. You know, the huge battery that we've got and integrating that, the packaging associated with getting all of this technology fitted into one vehicle, the challenges around gauging that we've got here in the UK and making all of that fit into this train has been a huge challenge for the technical team, and approvals has been a real big area where, quite frankly, there's not been the standards to be able to introduce a train like this into service that have been just off the shelf and ready to go. We've really worked with all of the stakeholders, the regulator, RSSB and so on, to develop those new standards. So that's been real cutting edge stuff alongside the technology itself.
At Kidderminster, where we stand for a few moments before we turn back, I notice, is that steam coming out the top? It is water vapour. Yeah, it's not a steam engine though, remember, it's a hydrogen train.
Main purpose of fuel cell technology is to make the world a better place. Instead of dirty systems coming out of an exhaust, we have nothing but water vapour. This is the whole purpose of what we're doing here, is down to this pipe here. It's nothing but water vapour out into the atmosphere.
So does this mean a hydrogen train will run in service on the network some point in the future, and if so, when?
We've learnt lots with this in terms of the technical team that's been involved in it, the innovation, the packaging, the approvals and so on. But just taking it that stage further could really afford the industry and client bodies the opportunity to learn from operating a real train with real passengers in a real operating environment ahead of a potential new train procurement in future. And that may be in the 2030s once that hydrogen economy is really up and running, but I've got no doubt we'll see hydrogen trains on the network in the future. Still an electric train at heart. It will still run underneath the overhead wires and then drop onto into hydrogen when the wires are not there. So it's a true bi-mode in that sense.
Just as the train started moving and the compressor brought in a bit of it's good to know it's still got a compressor, right? Yeah. It's just because it's a hydrogen train doesn't mean you don't get the compression shakes. Oh, I love it.
Do you want to do it elsewhere, somewhere else? Or
no, I'm going to leave it in. That's funny. I'm even going to leave this bit in with me saying that I'm leaving it in because it's kind of funny. The whole. I have so many memories of riding the Class 319 Thameslink when the trains were a little bit shabby and the Porterbrook train here is very nice. It's not real leather, is it? What is it? What do you call it?
Well, it's the offcuts of leather from the automotive.
Okay, yeah, so yeah. Nice leather seats.
Reconstituted.
Reconstituted leather, that's what I'm trying to think of. Okay, but the point I want to make is that what they're doing is that they're not saying this is the final product. This 319, which is now a 799, is just a test unit. It's a demonstration unit. It's to show and prove that the hydrogen technology works. But, you know, there's many, I'm talking to Ben off camera, there's many branch lines in Britain where a train operating company could be like, all right, we'll take your unit and we'll trial it for 6 months, go up and down a little branch line. Is that what you want? I think that's what you want.
Train a handful of drivers.
Yeah.
must support
Yeah.
refuelling.
Yeah, and
so on, and get to-
prove it on the actual mainline railway. So we headed back to Long Marston. The ride was smooth. It was just like travelling on any other train. It's just that it so happens to be powered by hydrogen. And so that is my day at the Long Martson Rail Innovation Centre, riding the Class 799 Hydroflex train. My thanks to everyone today from Porterbrook for showing us around, taking us for a ride, explaining the technology. There's links in the description if you want to read more. Thanks for watching.